The stars burned like distant fires in the void, casting an eerie glow over the shattered landscape of planet Vyrlia. It was a world caught in the merciless grip of the intergalactic war, where empires clashed like titans, and the ground itself seemed to bleed plasma from the wounds of endless battles. Amid the chaos, Princess Lyra of the Zorath Empire lay sprawled in the crimson dust, her once majestic form twisted in agony. Her white hair, usually flowing like a cascade of moonlight, was matted with grime and blood, framing a face of ethereal beauty, pale skin glowing faintly under the twin moons, pointed ears twitching faintly with the remnants of life. She was clad in armor that hugged her curves like a second skin, elegant yet revealing, crafted from shimmering alloys that whispered of ancient Zorathian royalty. But now, that armor was cracked, her body paralyzed from a neural disruptor blast that had struck during a brutal ambush. The Zorathians were a proud race, evolved from the fierce predators of their homeworld Zorathia, where only the strong survived. Their code was ironclad. Weakness was not pitied. It was excised like a diseased limb. As Lyra's comrades retreated, their sleek hovercraft slicing through the smoke-filled air, they glanced back at her with cold, reptilian eyes. She fell. One hissed through his comlink, his voice devoid of emotion. The Empire needs warriors, not burdens. Another, a hulking lieutenant with scales glinting under his helmet, paused only long enough to strip her of her royal insignia, a glowing amulet that symbolized her lineage. Survival of the fittest, he muttered, tossing it into the dirt before vanishing into the fray. Lyra's mind screamed in silent fury, her body betraying her, locked in a prison of immobility. She could feel the life ebbing from her limbs, the neural poison spreading like ice through her veins. In her culture, this was the end, abandoned to the elements, or worse, to the scavenging beasts that prowled these war-torn fields. But fate, that capricious force weaving through the cosmos, had other plans. From the shadows of a nearby crater, a figure emerged, human and unyielding. Sergeant Elias Reyes, a soldier from Earth's United Federation forces, had been scouting the perimeter when the ambush hit. His squad had been decimated, scattered like leaves in a storm, but Elias, elite to his friends back home, had always been the stubborn one. With his rugged jaw set and dark eyes scanning the horizon, he moved with the quiet precision of a man who'd seen too many battles. His combat suit, patched and scarred from countless engagements, hummed softly with human ingenuity, adaptive camouflage that blended him into the rubble, and a backpack rigged with makeshift tech salvaged from fallen foes. He shouldn't have stopped. Orders were clear: regroup at the extraction point. No detours, no heroics. But as Ellie's gaze fell on the fallen alien princess, something stirred in him, a spark of that inexplicable human trait called compassion. She was Zorathian, an enemy by all accounts, her people responsible for the glassing of 3 human colonies. Yet there she lay, vulnerable, her chest rising in shallow breaths, those elegant ears flickering like a wounded animal's. Damn it, Illy whispered to himself, his voice rough from the dust-choked air. Risking everything, he dashed across the open ground, plasma bolts whining past him from distant skirmishes. He reached her side, dropping to one knee, his gloved hands hovering uncertainly. "Hey, you alive in there?" he murmured, his breath fogging his visor. Lyra's eyes, a piercing violet, locked onto his, wide with shock, a Zorathian princess, heir to the throne of Zorathia. Being approached by a lowly human, it was unthinkable. Illy didn't hesitate long. With a grunt, he slung his rifle over his shoulder and scooped her up, her lithe, curvaceous form surprisingly light in his arms despite the armor. She was warm, alive, her skin soft where it brushed against his suit. A faint scent of exotic spices and starlight clung to her, cutting through the acrid smell of battle. "Easy now," he said softly, as if soothing a frightened child. "I'm not leaving you here to rot." Lyra's mind raced. Humans were barbarians, primitives who dared challenge the stars with their crude ships and unyielding spirit. Yet this one was defying logic, risking his life for an enemy. As he dragged her toward a concealed bunker, dodging debris and enemy patrols, she felt a strange warmth bloom in her chest, not from the poison, but from something far more dangerous: curiosity about this peculiar creature. The bunker was a forgotten relic, half buried under vines and rubble, its doors groaning open under Elie's forceful kick. Inside, the air was stale but safe, lit by flickering emergency lights. He laid her gently on a makeshift cot, his hands steady as he assessed her wounds. The paralysis was neural-based, he realized, pulling out his field medkit, a jumble of human gadgets, nanite injectors, bioscanners, and a portable regenerator pieced together from salvaged parts. "This might sting." He warned, though he knew she couldn't respond. Injecting a counteragent derived from Earth's biolabs, he watched as her body twitched, the poison slowly retreating. Hours blurred into a tense vigil. Illy talked to fill the silence, his voice a low rumble echoing off the walls. He spoke of Earth, of vast oceans, bustling cities, and the unbreakable human will to protect the weak. "We don't leave our own behind," he said, wiping sweat from his brow. "And hell, you're not even our own, but I couldn't just walk away." As the treatment took hold, Lyra's fingers began to tingle with returning sensation. She stared at him, this human with his messy dark hair peeking from under his helmet, his strong build speaking of battles won through sheer grit. In Zorathian lore, humans were pests, but here was one saving her life with tools that seemed almost magical in their simplicity. A flush crept up her pale cheeks, her pointed ears warming at the tips. What was this feeling? Gratitude, or something more forbidden, stirring in the depths of her warrior heart? Outside, the war raged on, but in that dim bunker, a fragile bond began to form. Illy shared his rations, a bland protein bar that tasted like cardboard, but to Lyra, it was a revelation, human food, shared without expectation. As her voice returned in hoarse whispers, she tested it. "Why? Why did you save me?" Her accent was melodic, like wind through crystal caves. Illy met her gaze, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Because it's what we do. Humans, we fight for more than just survival." Lyra's violet eyes softened, tracing the lines of his face. In that moment, amid the ruins of war, she saw not an enemy, but a savior, a man whose compassion pierced the armor of her pride. As days slipped by in hiding, Illy's ingenuity shone. He rigged a neural stimulator from Zorathian scraps and human batteries, massaging life back into her limbs with careful, almost tender touches. Lyra, unaccustomed to such gentleness, found herself drawn to him. Her body, once a weapon of grace and power, now responded to his care in ways that made her heart race. "You're different," she admitted one night as they sat by a small heater, the glow casting shadows on her curvaceous silhouette. Illy chuckled, a sound that sent a shiver down her spine. "Yeah, well, you're not so bad yourself, princess." Their conversations deepened, weaving tales of their worlds, her of Zorathia's glittering palaces and ruthless courts, him of Earth's messy, vibrant humanity. But danger loomed. Scouts from both sides scoured the area, and Illy knew they couldn't stay forever. One evening, as Lyra tested her legs, standing shakily with his support, their proximity ignited something electric. Her hand brushed his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "Illy," she breathed, using the shortened name he'd shared, her voice laced with unspoken desire. He froze, aware of the line they teetered on, an alien princess and a human soldier, enemies turned allies in the most intimate way. The ambush that had felled her was just the beginning. Whispers of betrayal within the Zorath Empire reached them via Illy's hacked comms. Her own brother, vying for the throne, had orchestrated it. "We have to move," Illy said urgently, packing their gear. Lyra nodded, her strength returning, but so too did a fierce protectiveness. For the first time, she saw humans not as foes, but as beacons of hope. As they ventured out under cover of night, hand in hand, the stars above seemed to align in approval. Their journey led through treacherous canyons, where bioluminescent flora lit their path like fairy lights. Illy's stories of Earth enchanted her, tales of love that defied odds, of heroes who saved not with swords, but with hearts. Lyra shared her own vulnerabilities, the loneliness of royalty in a cutthroat empire. In quiet moments, their touches lingered, a brush of fingers, a shared glance that spoke volumes. The war's horrors faded slightly in those stolen intimacies, replaced by a budding affection that felt as vast as the galaxy. Yet, the Empire's hunters closed in. In a narrow pass, they were ambushed again, Zorathian elites, sleek and deadly, descending with energy blades humming. Illy shoved Lyra behind cover, his rifle barking defiance. "Stay down," he yelled, dodging a blast that scorched the ground. Lyra, her paralysis fully gone, leaped into the fray, her own weapon, an elegant plasma sword, igniting with a whoosh. Together, they fought like a symphony of chaos, Illy's precise shots covering her fluid strikes, her agility complementing his raw power. One assailant lunged at Illy, but Lyra intercepted, her blade slicing through armor in a spray of sparks. "No one touches him," she snarled, her voice a thunderclap. The battle was fierce, each clash echoing through the canyon. Illy took a graze to his arm, blood mixing with dust, but he pressed on, his human resilience shining. Lyra marveled at it. Zorathians would have retreated, but he fought on for her. As the last enemy fell, they collapsed against each other, breaths ragged, bodies pressed close. "You saved me again," she whispered, her lips inches from his, Ellie's eyes darkened with emotion. We're in this together now. Their escape led to a hidden oasis, a crystalline lake fed by underground springs, where they tended wounds under the moon's light. Lyra's touch on his injury was gentle, her fingers tracing scars that told stories of his past. "Humans, you feel so deeply," she murmured, her body leaning into his, the air thickened with unspoken tension, the war a distant roar as they explored the boundaries of their worlds colliding. In that sanctuary, as the night deepened, Lyra's curiosity turned to something more primal. Her elegant ears flushed, her curvaceous form silhouetted against the water. Illy, ever the gentleman, hesitated, but the pull was irresistible. Their first kiss was tentative, a meeting of species that sparked like a supernova, her lips soft and tasting of stardust, his firm and grounded in earthly passion. It was a bridge across the void, a testament to human empathy igniting alien desire. As they lay entwined, the story of their unlikely alliance unfolded further, promising adventures that would shake the empires. But for now, in the heart of Violia, a princess and a soldier discovered that love could conquer even the stars. As the moons of Violia dipped lower in the sky, casting elongated shadows across the crystalline lake, Lyra and Ellie lingered in the afterglow of their shared vulnerability. The water lapped gently at the shore, a rhythmic whisper that mirrored the steady thrum of their hearts beating in unison. Ellie's arms encircled her waist, his calloused fingers tracing lazy patterns along the curve of her hip, where her armor had given way to the soft, shimmering fabric of her undergarments, elegant and form-fitting, designed for a warrior princess who commanded both battlefields and desires. Her white hair spilled over his shoulder like a silken veil, and her pointed ears, delicate and sensitive, brushed against his cheek with every subtle movement. The air between them hummed with an unspoken electricity, the kind that built slowly, like a storm gathering on the horizon. Lyra shifted slightly, her body pressing closer to his, the warmth of her pale skin seeping through the thin barriers of clothing. She had never felt this way exposed, not just physically, but in the depths of her soul, in the Zorath Empire. Alliances were forged in blood and strategy, not in these tender moments that made her feel alive in ways her royal training had never prepared her for. "Illy," she murmured, her voice a sultry melody that carried the exotic lilt of her homeworld Zorathia. Her violet eyes, half-lidded with a mix of exhaustion and burgeoning desire, met his. "What is this pull between us? It's like the gravity of a black hole, drawing me in despite every warning." He chuckled softly, the sound vibrating through his chest and into her, sending a shiver down her spine. Ellie's hand moved upward, fingers grazing the edge of her ear, eliciting a soft gasp from her lips. Those ears, so elf-like and exquisite, were a secret vulnerability among her kind, erogenous zones that few dared to touch without permission. But with him, it felt right, inviting, even. "It's called connection, princess," he replied, his breath warm against her neck. "Humans chase it like stars, and right now, with you, it's pulling me under too." His lips brushed her collarbone, a feather-light kiss that ignited sparks along her skin, making her arch instinctively toward him. The oasis around them felt like a stolen paradise, but suspense clung to the edges like mist rising from the water. Distant echoes of the war filtered through the night, faint booms of artillery, the whine of scout drones slicing the air. Illy's instincts, honed from years on the front lines, prickled with awareness. They weren't safe here. The Zorath hunters could track her neural signature, or worse, Federation patrols might mistake them for hostiles. Yet, in this moment, the danger only heightened the intensity, turning every touch into a defiant act against the chaos outside. Lyra's hands explored him in return, her fingers, long and graceful, tipped with subtle claws that retracted at will, sliding under his combat vest. His skin was rougher than hers, marked by scars that told stories of survival, each one a testament to the unyielding spirit that had drawn her to him. She traced a particularly jagged line across his abdomen, feeling the muscles tense beneath her touch. "Your body, it's a map of battles won," she whispered, her voice laced with admiration and something deeper, a hunger that surprised even her. In Zorathia, warriors mated for strength, but this was different, raw, emotional, laced with the forbidden thrill of crossing species lines. Illy's response was a low growl, his hand cupping her face, thumb brushing her full lips. He leaned in, capturing her mouth in a kiss that deepened with urgency, tongues dancing in a rhythm that mirrored the pulse of the universe around them. Her taste was intoxicating, a blend of sweet nectar from her world's flora and the salty tang of adrenaline. As their bodies intertwined more fully, The fabric between them seemed insignificant, her curvaceous form molding perfectly against his solid frame. Lyra's legs wrapped around his waist, pulling him closer, her hips grinding subtly in an instinctive Zorathian mating dance that sent waves of heat through both of them. But even as passion built, a shadow of suspense intruded. A faint beep from Ali's wrist comm disrupted the haze, a proximity alert. He broke the kiss reluctantly, his forehead resting against hers, breaths coming in ragged unison. "We've got company," he muttered, his voice husky with restrained desire. Lyra's eyes widened, her pointed ears perking up to catch the distant hum of engines. Zorathian trackers, no doubt her brother's elite guard, relentless in their pursuit. The thought sent a thrill of fear through her, mixing with the arousal in a heady cocktail that made her cling to him tighter. "We can't stay," Illy said, though his hands lingered on her thighs, squeezing gently as if to memorize the feel of her. He helped her to her feet, their bodies still humming with unfulfilled tension. Lyra adjusted her attire, the elegant, revealing cuts of her royal garb accentuating her sensual figure under the moonlight. She felt exposed, vulnerable, yet empowered by his gaze, those dark eyes that saw her not as a princess to conquer, but as a partner to cherish. They moved swiftly through the underbrush, Illy leading the way with his scanner in hand, Lyra close behind, her regained agility allowing her to match his pace. The forest around them was alive with bioluminescent creatures, glowing fungi pulsing like heartbeats, casting an ethereal light on their path. Every rustle in the leaves heightened the suspense, making Lyra's senses sharpen. She could feel the trackers closing in, their psychic links, a Zorathian trait, probing the ether for her presence. "They're using the hive mind net," she warned, her voice a breathless whisper as they ducked behind a massive, vine-draped boulder. "They'll sense my emotions if they are too strong." Illy turned to her, his expression a mix of determination and that smoldering intensity. "Then let's give them something confusing to sense," he suggested with a wicked grin, pulling her into the shadow. He kissed her again, this time with a fierce possessiveness that made her moan softly against his mouth. His hands roamed her back, fingers dipping into the curve of her spine, pressing her against the cool stone. Lyra's body responded eagerly, her white hair cascading as she tilted her head back, exposing the elegant line of her neck. He trailed kisses there, nipping gently at her skin, drawing out gasps that echoed her growing need. The erotic charge between them built like a coiling spring, suspense weaving through it as the hum of drones grew nearer. Lyra's claws extended slightly, scraping lightly down his arms, not to harm, but to mark him as hers in this fleeting moment. "Illy, we shouldn't." "Not here," she panted, though her body betrayed her words, arching into his touch. His reply was a murmur against her ear. "But we will when it's safe. For now, this keeps us alive, focused." The tease in his voice sent shivers through her, her sensitive ears tingling from his breath. They broke apart just as a drone whirred overhead, its red sensor eye sweeping the area. Illy activated a jammer from his pack, a human gadget that disrupted the signal with a burst of static. The drone faltered, veering off course, buying them precious minutes. Hand in hand, they dashed deeper into the woods, hearts pounding not just from the chase, but from the fire they'd ignited. As they reached a hidden cave, carved into the side of a cliff by ancient rivers, the suspense thickened. The entrance was narrow, forcing them to squeeze through together, bodies brushing in ways that reignited the spark. Inside, the air was cool and damp, stalactites dripping like tears from the ceiling. Illy set up a perimeter shield, a holographic barrier that cloaked their heat signatures. "This should hold for a bit," he said, turning to her with eyes dark with desire. Lyra stepped closer, her pale skin glowing faintly in the dim light, her form a vision of otherworldly allure. "Then use the time wisely, human," she teased, her voice dropping to a seductive purr. She reached for him, pulling him down onto a bed of soft moss. Their kisses resumed, slower now, exploratory, his hands mapping the contours of her body, discovering how her alien physiology responded. Her skin flushed a soft luminescence when aroused, a Zorathian trait that bathed them in a gentle glow. Illy marveled at it, his fingers tracing patterns that made her writhe beneath him. The erotic dance unfolded with deliberate suspense, each caress building toward an inevitable crescendo, interrupted only by the occasional distant explosion reminding them of the war outside. Lyra's gasps filled the cave, her pointed ears quivering as he whispered endearments, words like beautiful and mine that transcended languages. She reciprocated, her touch bold and curious, learning the ways of human intimacy that blended tenderness with passion. Yet, as their bodies moved in harmony, A new layer of suspense emerged. Lyra's mind, still linked faintly to her empire's net, picked up fragments, a betrayal deeper than she imagined. Her brother wasn't just after the throne, he had allied with a rogue faction, planning to unleash a weapon that could shatter planets. The knowledge hit her like a cold wave, even as pleasure crested. "Illy," she breathed, pausing in their embrace, her body still entangled with his. "There's more at stake than us, my people, they're being led to ruin." He held her close, his strength an anchor in the storm. "Then we'll stop it, together." The promise hung in the air, mingling with their shared heat, turning their intimacy into a vow. As the night wore on, their connection deepened, suspense and eros intertwining like vines. The cave became their sanctuary, a bubble in the chaos, where a princess and a soldier forged something unbreakable. But the war waited, its shadows lengthening, ready to test the limits of their bond. As the shadows in the cave grew longer with the creeping dawn, Lyra and Illy lay entwined on the mossy floor, their breaths sinking in the quiet aftermath of their shared intimacy. The luminescent glow from her skin faded slowly, like embers dying in a fire, leaving them in a soft, natural darkness punctuated only by the drip of water from the stalactites above. Illy's fingers idly traced the elegant curve of her pointed ear, drawing a contented sigh from her lips. But beneath that tranquility, the war's insistent drumbeat echoed in his mind. He could feel it, the fragile bubble of their sanctuary straining against the reality outside, where empires crumbled and alliances shattered like fragile glass. Lyra stirred against him, her curvaceous body shifting with a grace that belied the strength returning to her limbs, her white hair fanning out like a halo on his chest. "We can't hide forever," she whispered, her violet eyes reflecting a mix of lingering passion and the sharp focus of a warrior princess. Illy nodded, pulling her closer for one last moment, his lips brushing her forehead. "No, we can't. But whatever comes next, we face it as one." They rose together, the cool air of the cave raising goosebumps on their skin as they dressed in hurried silence. Illy checked his gear, the human tech humming to life with a reassuring whir, his scanner picking up faint signals of movement beyond the holographic shield. Lyra adjusted her royal armor, the shimmering material clinging to her form like a lover's embrace, accentuating the sensual lines that had captivated him through the night. Her pointed ears twitched, attuned to frequencies he couldn't hear, and a frown creased her pale brow. "They're closer than I thought," she said, her voice dropping to a tense murmur. "My brother's vanguard, elite trackers with neural amplifiers. They'll breach the shield soon." Illy's jaw tightened, a surge of adrenaline mixing with the remnants of their erotic haze, turning his protectiveness into a fierce resolve. He grabbed her hand, squeezing it firmly. "Then we move, fast." They slipped out of the cave under the cover of early light, the forest of Violia awakening around them with alien chirps and the rustle of bioluminescent leaves unfurling like secrets. The air was thick with suspense, every snap of a twig underfoot sending thrills of anticipation through their veins. Illy led the way, his human instincts guiding them through the dense undergrowth, while Lyra's Zorathian senses scanned for psychic probes, those invisible tendrils her people used to hunt. But as they crested a ridge overlooking a vast canyon scarred by plasma burns, a sudden roar shattered the fragile peace. From the skies, a squadron of Zorathian interceptors descended like vengeful birds of prey, their sleek hulls glinting ominously in the rising sun. "Ambush!" Illy shouted, shoving Lyra behind a boulder as the first energy bolts scorched the earth around them. The battle erupted in a whirlwind of chaos, dramatic and unrelenting, the canyon transforming into a theater of war where every shot could spell doom. Illy's rifle spat defiant fire, human precision taking down a drone that buzzed too close, its wreckage exploding in a shower of sparks that lit Lyra's face with fierce determination. She ignited her plasma sword, the blade humming to life with a resonant thrum that echoed her warrior heritage, slicing through the air as she leaped into the fray. Together, they were a force of nature, his grounded tactics complementing her fluid, almost dance-like strikes. But the numbers were against them. Her brother's forces poured in, armored elites with scales that deflected lesser blows, their eyes glowing with the cold calculation of the Empire's code. In the heart of the melee, Lyra faced off against a hulking commander, his voice booming through a modulator. "Princess, your weakness shames Zorathia. Surrender, and perhaps the Emperor will grant you a quick end." Her response was a whirlwind attack, her sword clashing against his energy shield in a spray of blue fire, the impact sending shockwaves through the ground. Illy covered her from afar, his shots precise and deadly, but a stray blast grazed his side, searing pain that he pushed down with gritted teeth. The thrill of the fight pulsed through him, mingled with a curious fear, not for himself, but for her. What if this was the end? The thought fueled his fury, turning each movement into a desperate bid for survival. As the conflict intensified, reaching a feverish climax, a surprising twist unfolded like a bolt from the void. Amid the chaos, one of the attackers hesitated, a young Zorathian soldier, his armor marked with the insignia of a lowborn guard. His eyes met Lyra's, wide with recognition and something deeper, doubt. "Highness," he hissed, lowering his weapon just a fraction. "The prince, he's not what he seems. The alliance with the Shadow faction, it's a lie. They're using a forbidden weapon, a neural cascade that will enslave us all, not just the humans." The revelation hit Lyra like a physical blow, her sword faltering for a heartbeat. Her brother, the ambitious heir, had betrayed not just her, but the entire empire. Curiosity burned in her chest, thrilling and terrifying. How deep did this conspiracy run? Illy, overhearing through his comm link synced to hers, felt a surge of surprise that electrified the moment. This wasn't just a hunt, it was the unraveling of a galactic plot. Seizing the opportunity, Lyra pressed the advantage, her voice dramatic and commanding. "Stand down, brother-in-arms, join us and expose the truth." The guard wavered, the battlefield hanging in suspense as bolts froze midair in the tension, but loyalty fractured. He turned his weapon on his comrades, a thrilling betrayal that shifted the tide. Chaos reigned anew, allies becoming enemies in an instant, the canyon echoing with cries of confusion and rage. Illy dove into the fray, tackling a sniper aiming for Lyra, their bodies tumbling down a slope in a tangle of limbs and fury. The fall was heart-stopping, rocks crumbling beneath them, but he shielded her with his body, the impact jarring but survivable. At the bottom, they scrambled to their feet, the battle above raging on without them. The defecting guard slid down after, his breath ragged. "Quickly, this way, there's a hidden shuttle in the ravine. But beware, the cascade device is primed. If activated, it will paralyze entire fleets." The information sparked a wave of curiosity in Illy. Human tech had whispers of such weapons, but Zorathian scale? It was unimaginable, surprising in its audacity. They raced through the ravine, the ground trembling from overhead explosions, each step a thrilling gamble against time. Lyra's hand in his felt like an anchor, her pale skin flushed with exertion, her curvaceous form moving with urgent grace that stirred memories of their night together even amid the peril. Deeper in, the drama escalated to a breathtaking peak. The shuttle loomed ahead, cloaked in vines, but guarding it was a figure that made Lyra gasp, a cloaked assassin, her brother's personal shadow, wielding a neural whip that crackled with deadly energy. "You should have died on the field, sister," the assassin sneered, her voice a venomous hiss. The fight that ensued was a masterpiece of tension, Lyra clashing blades with her foe in a duel of sibling shadows, sparks flying like stars in collision. Illy and the guard provided support, shots and strikes weaving a web of defense, but the assassin's whip lashed out, coiling around Illy's leg and sending paralyzing jolts through him. Pain exploded in his nerves, a dramatic echo of Lyra's own earlier torment, but he fought through it, his human grit shining in the dim light. In a surprising surge, Lyra disarmed her opponent with a feint learned from ancient Zorathian scrolls, her sword piercing the assassin's guard. But mercy stayed her hand. The assassin, unmasked, revealed a face twisted with forced loyalty. "The prince, he controls us with implants." She gasped, collapsing. The curiosity deepened. Implants? A hidden tech suppressing free will? It was a thrilling revelation, surprising in its implications for the Empire's downfall. With the path clear, they boarded the shuttle, engines roaring to life as the canyon collapsed behind them from a final barrage. As they blasted into the sky, evading pursuers in a heart-pounding chase through asteroid fields, the climax lingered in the air like smoke. Lyra piloted with expert hands, her pointed ears attuned to the ship's systems, while Illy monitored scanners, his wound throbbing but his spirit unbroken. The defector fed them intel, painting a picture of betrayal that curious minds could hardly fathom, her brother plotting with ancient enemies to wield the neural cascade, a weapon that could bend minds across stars. Surprise layered upon surprise, it wasn't just power he sought, but godhood, rewriting loyalties on a cosmic scale. The shuttle shuddered from near misses, the thrill of escape mingling with dramatic stakes. "We head to the neutral zone," Illy declared, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Contact my Federation contacts, expose this before it's too late." Lyra glanced at him, violet eyes alight with a mix of fear and fierce love, the bond forged in fire now tested by the galaxy's cruel whims. As they hurtled toward uncertainty, the war's shadows pursued, promising more twists in this unfolding saga of hearts and empires. As the shuttle streaked through the asteroid field, dodging jagged rocks that spun like drunken dancers in the void, Lyra gripped the controls with white-knuckled intensity, her pointed ears flattened against her head in concentration. The engines whined in protest, pushing the limits of the stolen Zorathian craft, while Lee monitored the rear scanners, his face illuminated by the flickering red alerts that painted the cockpit in ominous hues. The defector, a lanky Zorathian named Kale, whose scales still bore the fresh scars of battle, huddled in the jump seat behind them, muttering coordinates into a handheld device. The war's shadows weren't just pursuing, they were closing in. A squadron of interceptors hot on their tail, their plasma cannons charging with lethal intent. Every evasive maneuver heightened the drama, the shuttle shuddering from near misses that sent sparks flying from overloaded panels. "Hold on," Lyra shouted, banking hard to avoid a colossal asteroid, the G-forces pressing them back into their seats like an invisible giant's hand. Ellie's wound from the canyon throbbed with each jolt, a sharp reminder of how close they'd come to oblivion, but he forced a grin, trying to lighten the thickening tension. "You fly like you fight, princess, beautiful and terrifying. If we survive this, remind me to never get on your bad side." Lyra shot him a sidelong glance, her violet eyes flashing with a mix of amusement and exasperation, her white hair whipping around her face as the ship stabilized. "Flattery won't save us, human, but keep talking. Your voice distracts me from the fact that this rust bucket might fall apart before they blast us." Kale snorted from the back, a rare Zorathian chuckle that sounded like gravel in a blender. Humans and their humor, in Zorathia, we just accept death with dignity. Illy twisted in his seat, wincing at the pull on his side. Dignity's overrated when you've got a princess piloting like a demon. Besides, if we're going down, at least the view's nice. His eyes lingered on Lyra's curvaceous silhouette, outlined by the cockpit lights against her elegant, form-fitting armor that left just enough to the imagination to drive a man wild. The chase intensified, the interceptors weaving through the field like predators scenting blood, their comms crackling with demands for surrender. "Princess Lyra, by order of Prince Vexar, power down and prepare for boarding," blared a voice over the open channel, laced with smug authority. Lyra's face hardened, her pale skin flushing with rage. Vexar, her treacherous brother, the architect of this nightmare. The drama escalated as she punched the thrusters, sending them spiraling through a narrow gap between two colliding asteroids, debris pinging off the hull like angry hail. "Never," she growled, her voice a thunderclap in the confined space. But in the heat of the moment, as the ship lurched, Illy's hand slipped from the console, accidentally brushing against a secondary control panel. With a comical beep, the shuttle's automated distress beacon activated, broadcasting their position not just to the pursuers, but to every nearby vessel, friend or foe. "What the?" Illy stammered, his face turning a shade redder than the alerts. "I swear that wasn't me trying to play hero." Fat fingers, bad timing. Lyra's eyes widened in disbelief, an awkward silence blanketing the cockpit amid the chaos, broken only by the ship's alarms. You just lit us up like a festival beacon," she exclaimed, her melodic accent sharpening with frustration, though a twitch at the corner of her lips betrayed a hint of reluctant humor. Kale leaned forward, his reptilian features twisting into what might have been a smirk. "Human ingenuity at its finest. Now the entire sector knows we're here. Shall I prepare the tea for our uninvited guests?" Illy rubbed the back of his neck, the awkwardness hanging thick like fog, his rugged charm cracking under the self-inflicted blunder. "Hey, on the bright side, maybe it'll confuse them or attract some Federation backup. Silver linings, right?" The situation teetered on the edge of disaster, the drama heightening as more blips appeared on the scanner, not just Zorathian ships, but unidentified vessels drawn by the signal, turning their escape into a galactic free-for-all. As if the universe conspired to amplify the absurdity, one of the incoming ships hailed them, a ragtag pirate freighter, its captain's voice booming over the comms with a gravelly laugh. Well, what's this? A Zorathian royal shuttle playing tag in my backyard. State your business before I turn you into space confetti." Lyra muted the channel momentarily, turning to Illy with an arched eyebrow, her pointed ears perking up in curiosity mixed with annoyance. "Your silver lining just invited pirates to the party. Any more brilliant ideas?" Illy shrugged, the humor in his eyes cutting through the tension like a knife. "Tell them we're on our honeymoon. Might buy us some sympathy or at least a good laugh." Kale shook his head, muttering about human folly, but even he couldn't suppress a dry chuckle that eased the knot in the air. The drama surged as Lyra reopened the channel, her voice regal and commanding, weaving authority with a touch of desperation. "This is Princess Lyra of Zorathia. We're defecting with critical intelligence on a conspiracy that threatens the galaxy. Aid us, and you'll be rewarded handsomely." The pirate captain paused, the line crackling with suspense, before bursting into hearty laughter. "A princess, eh? And who's the scruffy human sidekick? Your knight in tarnished armor." Illy leaned in, his tone deadpan. "Sergeant Elias Reyes, at your service. And yeah, hey, I'm the one who hit the wrong button. Blame it on Earth fingers, they're not built for fancy alien tech." The awkward exchange hung in the void, the interceptors closing in while the pirates deliberated, turning the moment into a high-stakes comedy of errors, in a surprising twist that heightened the drama. The pirate ship veered into position, its cannons swiveling not toward them, but at the pursuing Zorathians. "All right, Your Highness, you've got guts. We'll cover your escape for a cut of that reward. Follow our lead." Relief washed over them like a cool wave, but it was short-lived. A direct hit from an interceptor rocked the shuttle, sparks erupting from the console and filling the cockpit with acrid smoke. Lyra fought the controls, her body straining against the harness, her sensual form taut with effort as the ship spun wildly. "Systems failing," she cried, the drama peaking in a whirlwind of alarms and flashing lights. Illy unstrapped himself, stumbling to the engineering panel amid the chaos, his wound protesting with fresh pain. "I've got this, human duct tape equivalent coming up." He jury-rigged a bypass with wires pulled from his own gear, his hands steady despite the awkward lurching, muttering curses under his breath that drew a laugh from Lyra even as death loomed. Kale, thrown about like a rag doll, clung to his seat, his usual stoic demeanor cracking into wide-eyed panic. "This is madness. In Zorathia, we'd execute the fool who activated the beacon." Illy shot back with a grin, sweat beading on his brow. "Good thing we're not there. Besides, execution sounds boring compared to this thrill ride." The humor, light and timely, diffused the edge of fear, binding them closer in the face of peril. With a final spark, the system stabilized, the shuttle surging forward under the pirates' protective fire. Blasts lit the asteroid field like fireworks, the interceptors peeling off one by one, either destroyed or retreating in the face of unexpected allies. As they cleared the field, docking protocols engaging with the pirate freighter for a hasty transfer, the awkwardness lingered in playful banter. Lyra helped Illy to his feet, her hand lingering on his arm, her violet eyes softening. "You humans and your mistakes, they might just save us all." He pulled her close for a brief, stolen kiss amid the smoke, his lips curving into a smile. "See, even my screw-ups have charm." Kale rolled his eyes, but a hint of respect gleamed in his gaze. "If this is how alliances form, the galaxy is doomed or saved. I can't decide." Boarding the freighter brought new layers of drama, the pirate crew a motley assortment of species eyeing them with suspicion and curiosity. The captain, a burly four-armed brute named Orvok with tentacles for hair, clapped Illy on the back hard enough to reopen his wound slightly. "Welcome aboard, button pusher. Heard about your little mishap. Classic human move." Illy winced but laughed it off, the awkward situation turning into an impromptu roast as crew members chimed in with jests about Earth tech and royal fugitives. Lyra, unaccustomed to such informality, stood regally amid the chaos, her elegant attire drawing admiring glances that she deflected with a haughty tilt of her head, though her pointed ears flushed at the compliments. The transfer heightened the stakes. With the neural cascade weapons activation looming, they huddled in the freighter's war room, holograms flickering with stolen intel. Kale revealed more implants in key officials, including potentially the Emperor himself, controlled by Vexar's shadow allies. The drama unfolded in heated debates, awkward silences when cultural clashes arose, like when Orvok offered Lyra a slimy tentacle-wrapped delicacy as a welcome gift, eliciting a polite but horrified decline. "It's thoughtful," she managed, her face a mask of diplomacy while Illy stifled a snicker behind his hand. "Try it, princess. Builds character or indigestion." Humor threaded through the tension, easing the weight of impending doom as they plotted their course to the neutral zone. But as alarms blared again, Vexar's main fleet mobilizing, the drama crested anew. Lyra's hand found Illy's under the table, a silent vow amid the storm. Awkward alliances, humorous blunders, and heart-pounding peril wove together, propelling them toward a confrontation that could reshape the stars. The freighter jumped to hyperspace, leaving the asteroids behind, but the shadows of betrayal followed, whispering promises of more trials ahead. As the freighter hurtled through hyperspace, The swirling vortex of stars outside the viewports created a mesmerizing backdrop, a cosmic dance that mirrored the turbulent emotions swirling within Lyra. The ship's hum vibrated through the deck, a constant reminder of their precarious flight, but for the first time in what felt like an eternity, there was a semblance of safety, a brief respite granted by Orvok's gruff hospitality. The pirate captain had assigned them a cramped but private quarters in the bowels of the vessel, a dimly lit cabin with a single bunk, flickering holographic maps on the walls, and the faint scent of recycled air mixed with exotic spices from distant trades. Illy leaned against the door as it sealed shut behind them, his body aching from the day's ordeals, but his eyes locked on Lyra with an intensity that made the small space feel even more intimate. She stood by the viewport, her white hair cascading down her back like a river of moonlight, her pale skin glowing softly under the cabin's warm lights, accentuating the elegant curves hugged by her royal armor. The drama of their escape lingered in the air like an unspoken promise, heightening every glance and touch. Lyra turned to him, her violet eyes shimmering with a blend of gratitude and something deeper, more urgent, a need born from the chaos they'd survived together. "Illy," she whispered, stepping closer, her pointed ears twitching slightly as if attuned to the rapid beat of his heart. The awkward banter from earlier had faded, replaced by a charged silence that spoke volumes. He reached out, his hand brushing hers, fingers intertwining in a gesture that felt both comforting and electric. "We've been running nonstop," he said softly, his voice rough with emotion. "But right now, in this moment, it's just us." She nodded, her body leaning into his, the warmth of her form pressing against him in a way that ignited sparks of longing they'd both suppressed amid the peril. Their embrace started gently, a culmination of the tension that had built since their first stolen kisses in the cave. Illy's arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her close, his lips finding hers in a kiss that deepened with the weight of their shared experiences. Lyra responded with equal fervor, her hands exploring the broad plains of his shoulders, feeling the strength that had carried her through battles and betrayals. The cabin seemed to shrink around them. The outside world, the scheming prince, the looming weapon, the uncertain alliances, fading into a distant hum. She guided him toward the bunk, their movements fluid and unhurried, a dance of discovery that celebrated their differences and similarities. Her armor, designed for flexibility, yielded easily under his touch, revealing the soft, inviting contours beneath, while his combat suit unzipped with a quiet hiss, exposing the scarred yet resilient body of a man who'd fought for what he believed in. In the privacy of that space, they allowed themselves to connect on a profound level, their bodies and hearts aligning in a rhythm that transcended species. Lyra's skin flushed with a gentle luminescence, a natural response that bathed the room in a soft, ethereal light, enhancing the intimacy of the moment. Illy marveled at her, whispering words of admiration that made her pointed ears warm and her breath quicken. Their caresses were tender yet passionate, exploring with care and curiosity, each touch an affirmation of the bond forging between them. She traced the lines of his muscles, feeling the steady pulse of life beneath, while he held her close, his hands gentle on her curves, drawing soft sighs from her lips. The experience was one of mutual surrender, a beautiful expression of trust and desire that strengthened their resolve for the trials ahead. Time seemed to stretch, the hyperspace journey providing a cocoon where they could simply be, two souls finding solace in each other. Lyra nestled against him afterward, her head on his chest, listening to the reassuring thump of his human heart, so different from the dual rhythms of her own people. "This, what we share," she murmured, her voice laced with wonder. "It's more powerful than any weapon my brother could wield." Illy smiled, his fingers combing through her white hair, the strands silky and cool against his skin. "Yeah, it's our secret strength. Humans call it love, messy, unpredictable, but unbreakable." She lifted her head, violet eyes meeting his, a playful spark igniting amid the tenderness. "Then let's use it to shatter his plans." As they lay there, the ship's comm buzzed softly with updates from the bridge, Orvok reporting clear scans for now, but warnings of potential hyperspace anomalies ahead. The drama outside crept back in, but it only served to deepen their connection, turning their private interlude into a source of renewed energy. Illy propped himself up on one elbow, tracing a lazy pattern on her arm, eliciting a contented hum from her. "We should rest while we can," he suggested, though his eyes held a lingering warmth. Lyra agreed, pulling a thin blanket over them, her curvaceous form curling into his side with natural ease. The cabin's holographic maps flickered with star charts, plotting their path to the neutral zone, a reminder that their journey was far from over. In those quiet hours, as conversations flowed freely, blending vulnerability with light-hearted exchanges that eased the weight of their situation. Lyra shared more about Zorathia's customs, the arranged unions of royalty that lacked the passion she'd found with him, while Lily recounted tales from Earth, romantic legends of star-crossed lovers that mirrored their own story. Their laughter mingled with whispers, creating a tapestry of emotions that fortified them against the unknown. Yet, beneath it all, a subtle tension simmered, the awareness that their intimacy could be interrupted at any moment by the war's demands. When the ship jolted slightly from a minor turbulence, they stirred, dressing with reluctant efficiency, their touches lingering as if to savor the closeness. Lyra adjusted her armor, the material conforming seamlessly to her figure, while Lily zipped up his suit, wincing at the pull on his healing wound. "Ready for whatever comes next?" he asked, his hand cupping her cheek. She leaned into it, her pointed ears brushing his palm. "With you, always." They stepped out into the corridor, the freighter's crew bustling around them, oblivious to the profound shift that had occurred in the cabin. Orvok greeted them on the bridge with a knowing grin, his forearms gesturing wildly at the consoles. "Hope you two got some rest. We've got incoming intel. Your brother's fleet is mobilizing faster than expected." The drama ramped up as holograms displayed the neural cascade device's schematics, pieced together from Kale's data. Lyra's face hardened, her royal poise returning, but Ali could see the fire in her eyes, fueled by their shared moments. As plans were debated, infiltrating a key outpost in the neutral zone to disable the weapon's core, their bond became an unspoken anchor, a source of strength amid the escalating stakes. Awkward glances from the crew hinted at rumors spreading about the human and the princess, but it only added a layer of intrigue, humanizing their epic quest. Kale pulled them aside during a brief lull, his scales shifting colors in agitation. "The implants, they're more widespread than I thought. Even some on this ship might be compromised." The revelation added suspense, turning allies into potential threats, but Ali clapped him on the shoulder. "We'll handle it. Stick with us, and you'll see what humans and Zorathians can do together." Lyra nodded, her hand slipping into Ali's, a subtle gesture that spoke of unity. As the freighter neared the neutral zone, emerging from hyperspace with a shudder, the viewport revealed a sprawling asteroid base teeming with ships from various factions, a neutral ground where diplomacy and danger coexisted. Docking procedures began, the drama building as they prepared to step into the lion's den. Lyra and Elise shared one last private glance, their connection a beacon in the storm, promising that no matter the betrayals or battles ahead, they would face them intertwined. The base buzzed with activity, merchants hawking wares from across the galaxy, spies lurking in shadows, and diplomats negotiating fragile pieces. Orvok led them through the throng, his presence a deterrent to would-be troublemakers. "Keep your heads down," he advised, his tentacles wriggling in emphasis. "This place is a powder keg." Illy scanned the crowds, his arm protectively around Lyra's waist, drawing curious stares at the unlikely pair, a rugged human soldier and an ethereal Zorathian princess. Their first stop was a shadowy informant contact, a multi-eyed alien in a dimly lit cantina where deals were whispered over glowing drinks. The informant leaned in, voices low. "The cascade device is here, hidden in the core labs, but accessing it requires royal codes. Yours, princess." Lyra's eyes narrowed, the weight of her heritage pressing down, but Ali's reassuring squeeze grounded her. As they absorbed the intel, a sudden commotion erupted, Zorathian agents bursting in, weapons drawn, shouting her name. The chase through the base's labyrinthine corridors was heart-pounding, drama at every turn. Illy fired covering shots, Lyra's plasma sword flashing, while Orvok's crew provided unexpected backup, turning the pursuit into a chaotic ballet. They ducked into maintenance tunnels, breaths ragged, the intimacy of their earlier moments fueling their synergy. "This way," Kale yelled, leading them to a secure hideout. In the hideout, tensions eased slightly, allowing for a moment of reflection. Lyra tended to a minor scrape on Ali's arm, her touches gentle and lingering, evoking memories of their cabin time. "We keep finding ourselves in these close calls," she said with a soft smile. He pulled her into a quick embrace, "and we keep coming out stronger." As night fell on the base, artificial lights dimming to simulate cycles, the group plotted their infiltration. The neural cascade loomed large, its activation countdown ticking in their minds. Lyra and Ali volunteered for the core team, their bond making them an unstoppable duo. With plans set, they stole a few precious minutes alone, reaffirming their connection with whispered promises and tender gestures. the passion between them a quiet fire that burned brighter with each challenge. The operation began at dawn, sneaking through vents and bypassing security with hacked human tech and Zorathian cunning. Drama unfolded in waves, close encounters with guards, tense hacks, and surprising alliances with disillusioned scientists. At the lab's heart, the device pulsed like a malevolent heart, guarded by elite forces. The confrontation was fierce, blades clashing, shots echoing, but their teamwork prevailed, Lyra inputting codes while Ellie held the line. In the climax of the infiltration, a twist, the device was a decoy, the real one on Vexar's flagship. Betrayal stung, but their resolve hardened. Escaping the base amid alarms, they rendezvoused with the freighter, the galaxy's fate hanging by a thread. Lyra and Ellie, side by side, knew their love was the key to victory, a force as vast as the stars themselves. As the freighter powered toward Vexar's flagship, a colossal behemoth orbiting the fringes of Zorathian space like a predatory shadow, Lyra and Ellie stood on the bridge, their hands still linked in that quiet affirmation of unity. The stars streaked past in hyperspace's embrace, but the calm was deceptive, a thin veil over the storm brewing ahead. Orvok paced the deck, his forearms gesturing at holographic displays that mapped the flagship's defenses, layered shields, automated turrets, and squadrons of fighters ready to swarm like angry insects. Kale hovered nearby, inputting overrides from his insider knowledge, his scales shifting nervously under the scrutiny of the pirate crew. "The core chamber is where he'll be," Kale said, his voice steady but edged with the weight of defection. Vexar guards it personally, surrounded by his implanted loyalists. One wrong move, and the cascade activates, bending minds across the sector. Lyra's violet eyes narrowed, her pointed ears angling forward as she studied the schematics. Her curvaceous form radiating the poise of a princess turned rebel. Ellie squeezed her hand, his presence a grounding force amid the escalating tension. "We've come this far," he murmured, his breath warm against her ear. "Your strength, my stubbornness, will turn that weapon against him." The jump out of hyperspace was seamless, the freighter emerging into real space with a subtle shudder, the flagship looming large on the view screen like a dark crown against the nebula's glow. Alarms blared almost immediately, detection sweeps pinging their hull, fighter bays opening to disgorge threats. Orvok barked orders, his crew manning cannons that spat defiant energy bursts, carving paths through the initial wave. "Boarding pods ready?" he roared, tentacles flailing in orchestrated chaos. Lyra and Ellie suited up in tandem, their movements synchronized from battles shared, her elegant armor gleaming beside his rugged human gear. She paused to adjust his collar, her fingers lingering on his neck, a silent promise in her touch. "Stay close," she said, her voice a melodic whisper that cut through the din. He nodded, pulling her into a quick, fierce kiss that drew a few wolf whistles from the crew, lightening the mood just enough to steel their nerves. The boarding was a frenzy of motion, pods launching like arrows, latching onto the flagship's hull with magnetic clamps that groaned under the strain. Illy led the charge through the breach, his rifle humming as he cleared the corridor of automated drones, sparks flying in arcs that illuminated Lyra's graceful advance behind him. She wielded her plasma sword with lethal precision, slicing through bulkheads and foes alike, her white hair flowing like a banner of defiance. Kale and a handful of Orvok's pirates followed, providing cover fire that echoed through the metallic halls. The ship's interior was a labyrinth of opulent Zorathian design, crystalline walls pulsing with energy, corridors lined with holographic tapestries depicting imperial glories, but the air thrummed with an undercurrent of wrongness, the faint psychic hum of the cascade device seeping into their minds like insidious whispers. Deeper they pressed, the resistance growing fiercer, implanted guards with glowing eyes charging without fear, their movements puppet-like under Vexar's control. Lee took a glancing hit to his shoulder, pain flaring hot, but he pushed on, his human resilience a beacon that inspired the team. Almost there, Lyra called, her body moving in fluid harmony with his, dodging blasts and countering with strikes that felled enemies in elegant arcs. They burst into the core chamber, a vast dome of swirling energy where the neural cascade device hovered like a malevolent orb, tendrils of light coiling around it. And there, on a raised throne of shimmering alloys, sat Prince Vexar, tall and imposing, his features a twisted mirror of Lyra's ethereal beauty, his scales darker, his eyes burning with ambition. "Dear sister," Vexar drawled, his voice amplified by the chamber's acoustics, laced with mocking affection. "You've brought vermin into our sacred halls, how quaint. He rose, his royal robes flowing like liquid shadow, a neural amplifier crown glinting on his brow. The guards encircled them, weapons trained, but Vexar waved them off with a languid hand, his gaze fixing on Ali with predatory interest. "And you, human Sergeant Elias Reyes, the savior who thawed my sister's frozen heart, how poetic." Lyra stepped forward, her sword ignited, her posture radiating fury. "End this madness, brother. The Empire crumbles under your betrayal. Surrender the device, and perhaps Father will show mercy." Vexar's laughter echoed, cold and resonant, heightening the drama as the orb pulsed brighter, its energy crackling like impending thunder. But as the standoff thickened, Vexar tilted his head, a sly smile curling his lips. "Father, oh, Lyra, you always were the idealist. But tell me, have you ever wondered why your paralysis struck so precisely during that ambush, or why this human found you so conveniently?" Illy's brow furrowed, a knot of unease forming in his gut, but he held his ground, rifle steady. "Whatever game you're playing, it ends now," he growled. Vexar chuckled again, stepping closer, the air humming with psychic pressure that made Kale wince and the pirates shift uneasily. "No games, Sergeant, only truths. You see, the neural cascade isn't just a weapon, it's a key. And you, Illy, are part of the lock." In a fluid motion, Vexar activated a hidden panel, projecting a hologram that filled the chamber, a cascade of data streams revealing classified files, images flickering like ghosts. Lyra's eyes widened as she scanned them, her pale skin draining of color. There, amid the schematics of the device, were records of human involvement, Federation Black Ops experiments on mind control, dating back years. But the true shock came as Illy's face appeared in the files, not as a victim, but as a test subject. What is this?" Lyra breathed, turning to him, her violet eyes searching his for denial. Illy stared, his world tilting, memories he'd buried resurfacing like a tidal wave. I was captured once on a border skirmish. They experimented on me, but I escaped. I thought it was over." Vexar's voice cut through, dripping with triumph. "Escaped? Oh no, Sergeant, you were released, implanted with a dormant trigger, a sleeper agent for our alliance. The Shadow Faction, it's a joint venture, Zorathian ambition fused with human ingenuity. Your Federation's rogue elements supplied the tech. We perfected it. And you, Illy, were the prototype. That compassion that drove you to save my sister. Programmed, every touch, every whisper designed to draw her out, to bring her here so I could claim the throne unchallenged." The revelation hit like a supernova, surprise rippling through the group. Illy staggered, his mind reeling, flashes of suppressed memories assaulting him, sterile labs, human scientists in Federation uniforms collaborating with Zorathian overseers, embedding commands deep in his psyche. "No," he whispered, horror etching his features. "It can't be." Lyra's hand trembled on her sword, torn between love and betrayal, her pointed ears flattening in distress. "Illy, tell me it's a lie." But the hologram continued, showing logs of his activation signals sent during the ambush, guiding him straight to her. Kale gasped, realizing the depth of the conspiracy, while Orvok's crew muttered in shock, weapons wavering. Vexar advanced, the orb's energy coiling toward Illy like seeking vines. "Now, activate your true purpose. Human, subdue them." Illy's body jerked, the implant awakening with a searing pain in his skull, forcing his rifle to rise toward Lyra. The drama peaked in that frozen moment, the chamber charged with betrayal's electric sting. But deep within, Illy's human spirit fought back memories of their genuine moments, the warmth of her touch, the laughter shared clashing against the programming. "Fight it," Lyra pleaded, her voice breaking, stepping closer despite the danger, her curvaceous form a symbol of the trust he'd earned, not implanted. With a guttural roar, Illy turned the rifle on Vexar instead, firing a shot that grazed the prince's arm, disrupting the signal. "It's not all a lie," he panted, collapsing to one knee as the implant's hold weakened. "What we have, it's real, I feel it." Vexar snarled, clutching his wound, the guards surging forward. Chaos erupted anew, but the twist had shattered illusions, forcing alliances to reform in the fire of truth. Lyra rushed to Illy's side, helping him stand, her faith in him unwavering despite the surprise. "Then prove it," she said, her eyes fierce with love. Together they charged, the battle renewed with raw emotion, the orb's power teetering on the brink. As blasts lit the chamber, Kale hacked into the controls, overriding safeguards, while Orvok's pirates held the line with ferocious glee. Vexar retreated behind a shield, hurling taunts, but the surprise had backfired, Illy's resistance exposing flaws in the implant tech. "You're more than their puppet," Lyra whispered amid the fray, her plasma sword defending him as he regained control. The fight intensified, each clash a step toward reclaiming their narrative, the powerful twist transforming doubt into unbreakable resolve. They pressed Vexar back, the prince's composure cracking as the orb destabilized from Kael's interference. In a desperate bid, Vexar lunged, his own blade igniting, clashing with Lyra's in a sibling duel that echoed with years of rivalry. Illy flanked him, his shots precise, forcing Vexar to divide his attention. The surprise lingered, fueling Illy's determination to prove his feelings were his own. With a coordinated strike, Lyra disarming her brother, Illy delivering the stunning blow, Vexar fell, the crown clattering to the floor. But the orb, now unstable, began to pulse wildly, threatening to activate uncontrollably. "We have to shut it down," Kael yelled, racing to the console. As they worked frantically, Illy pulled Lyra close, his voice steady. "Whatever they put in me, it doesn't change us." She nodded, her lips brushing his in a brief, affirming kiss. The chamber stabilized just in time, the device powering down, its threat neutralized. In the aftermath, as Federation reinforcements arrived, summoned by Orvok's opportunistic hails, the group stood amid the wreckage, the twist's echoes reshaping everything. Illy underwent scans to remove the implant, emerging freer, his bond with Lyra deepened by the fire of revelation. Vexar, captured, ranted about greater powers, hinting at deeper conspiracies, but for now, victory was theirs, a surprise that had tested them, only to forge them stronger. As they departed the flagship, heading toward Zorathia to rally the Empire, Lyra leaned against Illy, her head on his shoulder. "Surprises like that, they make our story legendary." He smiled, the stars ahead promising more adventures, and we're just getting started. As they departed the flagship, the freighter's engines humming a steady rhythm that carried them toward Zorathia, Lyra leaned against Illy, her head on his shoulder, the warmth of her body a comforting anchor in the vastness of space. The stars ahead blurred into streaks as the ship accelerated, promising more adventures, but also whispering of the uncertainties waiting on her homeworld. "Surprises like that, they make our story legendary," she said, her voice soft with a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. He smiled, wrapping an arm around her waist, pulling her closer amid the gentle sway of the deck. "We're just getting started," Illy replied, his tone laced with that unshakable human optimism that had become her lifeline. But even as the words left his lips, a subtle vibration rippled through the hull, a warning klaxon flickering to life on the bridge console, its red glow casting ominous shadows across their faces. Orvok's voice boomed over the intercom, gruff and urgent, shattering the intimate moment. "All hands. Incoming transmission from Zorathia Prime. It's the Emperor, your father, Princess, and he doesn't sound thrilled about our little party crashing his palace gates." Lyra straightened, her pointed ears perking up as she exchanged a glance with Illy, the drama escalating like a gathering storm. They hurried to the bridge, Kael trailing behind with a datapad clutched in his clawed hands, his scales flickering nervously under the lights. The viewscreen crackled to life, revealing Emperor Thaler, a towering figure with silvered scales and eyes like polished amethysts, his regal throne room a backdrop of crystalline spires and holographic banners fluttering in an artificial breeze. His gaze pierced through the feed, landing on Lyra with a mix of paternal concern and imperial fury. "Daughter," he rumbled, his voice echoing with the weight of centuries-old authority. "Reports of Vexar's capture reach me, along with tales of human involvement. Explain yourself before I dispatch the royal guard to escort you, forcefully if needed." The tension thickened the air like syrup, heightening the drama as Lyra stepped forward, her curvaceous form radiating defiance in her battle-worn armor. Illy stood beside her, his hand brushing hers in silent support, but the Emperor's eyes narrowed on him, a flicker of disdain crossing his features. "Father," Lyra began, her melodic accent steady despite the knot in her chest. "Vexar betrayed us all alliances with shadows, implants controlling our people. This human, Sergeant Elias Reyes, saved my life, exposed the plot, and helped dismantle the cascade. He's no enemy, he's an ally." The word hung awkwardly in the air, laden with unspoken implications, and Illy shifted uncomfortably, feeling the weight of 1,000 Zorathian traditions bearing down. Orvok, ever the opportunist, chimed in from his captain's chair, his tentacles waving dismissively. "Ally? Ha, the boy's got guts, I'll give him that. But if you're planning a family reunion, mind if we tag along? Rewards don't pay themselves." Kael elbowed him subtly, muttering about protocol, but the pirate's humor sliced through the stiffness like a poorly timed joke at a funeral, drawing a reluctant twitch of amusement from Lyra's lips. Emperor Thaler's expression darkened, the drama peaking as he leaned forward, his holographic image looming larger. An ally who, by all accounts, has fraternized with my heir? Whispers from the court speak of improprieties, human touches on Zorathian royalty. If this is true, it could fracture alliances we've built over eons. Lyra's pale cheeks flushed a luminescent pink, her pointed ears warming at the tips, an awkward silence blanketing the bridge as the crew suddenly found the consoles fascinating. He cleared his throat, stepping up with his trademark human bravado, though his voice cracked just a bit. Your Majesty, with all due respect, saving your daughter's life kinda blurs those lines. Yeah, we've connected, but it's real, not some interstellar fling. Think of it as diplomacy with benefits. Orvok burst into a belly laugh, his forearms slapping his knees, the sound echoing inappropriately loud. Diplomacy with benefits. Kid, you're either a genius or suicidal. Pass the popcorn, this family's got more drama than my last heist gone wrong. Kale shot Ali a horrified look, his scales paling, while Lyra elbowed her partner gently, her violet eyes wide with a mix of mortification and mirth. Illy, perhaps leave the negotiations to me, she whispered, though her hand squeezed his reassuringly. The Emperor's gaze softened fractionally, a hint of curiosity breaking through his stern facade. Zorathian's valued strength, and this human's audacity was nothing if not bold. But the awkwardness lingered, amplified by the open comm link, as courtiers in the background murmured, their pointed ears twitching in scandalized unison. Very well, Thaler conceded after a pregnant pause, the drama simmering like a pot about to boil over. Dock at the palace spire, we'll convene in the grand hall, but human, tread carefully, our codes are not as flexible as your Earth's. The screen flickered off, leaving the bridge in a hush broken only by Orvok's lingering chuckles. Well, that went swimmingly, the pirate captain quipped, wiping a tear from one eye. Nothing says welcome to the family like a veiled threat from Daddy Dearest. As the freighter approached Zorathia Prime, a jewel of a planet with swirling auroras and towering crystal cities piercing the clouds, the group prepared for landing, the drama heightening with every descending kilometer. Lyra pulled Ali aside into a quiet alcove off the corridor, her body pressing close in the confined space, the scent of her exotic spices and starlit warmth enveloping him. Father's court is a viper's nest, she warned, her fingers tracing his jawline, a tender gesture amid the tension. They'll test you, probe for weaknesses, and after Vexar's revelations, they'll question everything about us. Illy nodded, his hands settling on her hips, pulling her nearer, the awkwardness of the moment clashing with the impending royal scrutiny. Hey, I faced worse than judgmental in-laws. Remember that time I accidentally broadcast our position? If I can survive your glare after that, I can handle a throne room full of aliens. She laughed softly, the sound a melodic ripple that eased the knot in her chest, but her eyes held a spark of worry. Just, no more diplomacy with benefits lines. Promise? He grinned, stealing a quick kiss that deepened unexpectedly, their bodies aligning in that familiar, electric way, only to be interrupted by Kale clearing his throat from the doorway. Apologies, but Orvok says we're entering atmosphere. And the crew's taking bets on whether the Emperor blasts us on sight. The landing was a spectacle, the freighter touching down on the palace spire's grand platform amid swirling winds and honor guards in gleaming armor, their energy lances humming at attention. As the ramp lowered, Lyra led the way, her white hair catching the auroral light like a crown, Illy at her side looking every bit the out-of-place human in his patched suit. The drama unfolded in waves as they entered the grand hall, a cavernous space of floating crystals and holographic thrones, courtiers whispering behind elegant fans, their gazes dissecting the pair. Emperor Thaler awaited on his dais, Vexar kneeling in chains at his feet, the prince's defiant sneer a stark contrast to his defeated posture. Approach, Thaler commanded, his voice booming like thunder. Lyra knelt gracefully, pulling Illy down with her, though his knee cracked audibly in the silence, drawing a few stifled snickers from the assembly. Smooth, she muttered under her breath, her pointed ears flushing again. Illy whispered back, human joints built for endurance, not elegance, blame evolution. The interrogation began, heightening the drama as Thaler grilled them on the conspiracy, Vexar interjecting with venomous barbs. She's been compromised by that primitive. The prince spat, his eyes gleaming with malice. His implant was just the start. Humans are the real infiltrators. Illy rose to the bait, standing tall despite the awkward position. Primitive, says the guy who needed mind control to win a family feud. At least I fight fair and win princesses the old-fashioned way. The court gasped, a ripple of shock turning to hesitant laughter from a few bolder nobles, the humor diffusing the edge just enough to keep blades sheathed. Thaler raised a hand for silence, his expression unreadable, but a glint in his eye suggested amusement. Bold words, human, but proof is required. The Cascade's remnants must be purged from our systems, starting with you. Medics approached with neural scanners, the procedure a tense affair as Elise admitted, lying on a crystalline table while Lyra held his hand, her curvaceous form a vision of worry beside him, as the scan hummed to life, probing for any lingering traces of the implant. An awkward hitch emerged, the device, calibrated for Zorathians, misread human biology, emitting a series of comical beeps and holographic errors that depicted Elise's brain as a chaotic swirl of Earth memes and coffee cravings. Anomalous readings, the medic stammered, his scales paling. It shows affection patterns overriding all commands. The court murmured, Lyra stifling a laugh as Elise sat up, rubbing his temple. See, even your tech knows it's real. No programming could fake my terrible taste in jokes. Orvok, lounging in the back with his crew, hollered, or his luck with royals. Pay up, lads, I bet on the human surviving the in-laws. The humor spread like wildfire, even drawing a rare chuckle from Thaler, who waved off the medics. Enough, the scans clear him, but the court demands a trial of worth for you to claim alliance with my daughter. Human, face our ancient right. The drama surged as Thaler described the rite, a simulated battle in the palace arena, pitting Elise against holographic champions drawn from Zorathian legends, testing not just strength, but cunning and heart. Lyra protested, her voice rising in passion. Father, he's wounded, unaccustomed to our ways, but Elise stepped forward, his jaw set. I'll do it, for us. The awkwardness peaked as preparations began, courtiers fitting him with Zorathian gear that hugged his frame oddly, the armor's elegant cuts making him look like a mismatched gladiator. Feels like wearing a fancy spacesuit to a barbecue. He quipped to Lyra, flexing awkwardly. She adjusted the straps, her hands lingering on his chest, a spark of intimacy amid the spectacle. You'll shine, she assured, though her eyes betrayed fear. The arena was a coliseum of light, crowds of nobles filling the tiers, holographic barriers shimmering. As the rite commenced, champions materialized, towering warriors with energy blades and psychic shields. Elise dodged the first strike, his human agility surprising the crowd, countering with improvised moves that blended Federation tactics with sheer improvisation. A massive hologram lunged, and Elise tripped over his own boot, tumbling into a roll that accidentally disrupted the projection, eliciting gasps and laughter. Not the grace I hoped for, he muttered, springing up to deliver a stunning blow. Lyra watched from the royal box, her heart pounding, Thaler beside her with arms crossed. He fights like a cornered beast, unpredictable. The Emperor observed, a note of approval creeping in. Blow by blow, the drama heightened. Elise's wounds reopening slightly, blood mixing with sweat, but his humor shone through taunts that baffled the AI constructs. Come on, big guy, I've dated scarier. The crowd, initially skeptical, began cheering, the awkward human winning them over with grit and wit. In a final clash, the drama heightened, Elise's wounds reopening slightly, blood mixing with sweat, but his humor shone through taunts that baffled the AI constructs. Come on, big guy, I've dated scarier. The crowd, initially skeptical, began cheering, the awkward human winning them over with grit and wit. In a final clash, he outmaneuvered the last champion, using a feint Lyra had taught him, collapsing the hologram in a burst of light. Exhausted, he stood victorious, the arena erupting in applause. Lyra rushed to him, embracing amid the cheers, their kiss a defiant seal on their bond. Thaler descended, placing a hand on Elise's shoulder. You have proven worthy. Human, the alliance stands. But as celebrations loomed, a new transmission pierced the joy, Federation ships approaching, demanding explanations for the joint conspiracy. The drama refused to fade, awkward questions of cross-species loyalty arising, tempered by Orvok's jests about intergalactic weddings. Through it all, Lyra and Elise stood united, their story a blend of peril, passion, and playful mishaps, forging a path toward peace. As the arena's holographic barriers dissolved in a shimmer of fading light, the cheers of the crowd washing over them like a tidal wave of approval, Lyra and Elise stood locked in their embrace, her lips still tingling from the kiss that sealed his victory. The ancient rite, with its trials of holographic beasts and psychic mazes, had tested not just his body but the very essence of his spirit, and he'd emerged triumphant, his human ingenuity turning what could have been a fatal ordeal into a spectacle of resilience and wit. Emperor Thaler descended the steps from his dais, his silvered scales catching the auroral glow filtering through the domed ceiling, his presence commanding yet softened by a rare paternal warmth. "Rise, Sergeant Elias Reyes," he intoned, extending a clawed hand to helpily to his feet, the gesture bridging empires in a single touch. Lyra beamed, her violet eyes sparkling with pride, her white hair tousled from the rush to his side, framing her ethereal face in a way that made her look every bit the warrior princess who'd claimed her own destiny. The court erupted in applause once more, nobles rising from their seats in a wave of shimmering robes and glowing insignia, the awkward whispers of scandal giving way to murmurs of admiration. Orvok and his pirate crew, lounging at the arena's edge with Kale in tow, whooped enthusiastically, the burly captain's tentacles waving like victory flags. "Told you the human had it in him," Orvok bellowed, his laughter booming across the hall. "Now, about that reward, intergalactic weddings don't cater themselves, you know." Kale rolled his eyes but smiled, his scales settling into a calmer hue, the defector finally finding a place among unlikely friends. Vexar, still chained nearby under heavy guard, scowled in silence, his ambitions crumbling like the holographic champions Illy had bested, a defeated shadow of the threat he'd once posed. But as the celebrations began to swell, servants materializing with trays of crystalline goblets filled with Zorathian nectar, the drama took one final turn, the incoming Federation fleet's transmission piercing the joy like a distant thunderclap. The Grand Hall's central hologram flickered to life unbidden, projecting Admiral Kira Voss, a stern human woman with iron-gray hair and a uniform adorned with Federation stars, her image hovering imposingly amid the crystal spires. "Emperor Thaler, Princess Lyra, this unauthorized convergence raises alarms across the neutral zones. Explain the human involvement in Zorathian affairs, or prepare for intervention." The court hushed, tension rippling through the air once more. Awkward glances exchanged as old enmities threatened to resurface. Illy stepped forward, still catching his breath from the right, his arm around Lyra's waist in a protective hold that spoke volumes. "Admiral," he called out, his voice steady despite the sweat beading on his brow. "It's me, Sergeant Reyes. The conspiracy went deeper than borders. We stopped it together. Humanity and Zorathia aren't enemies anymore, we're partners." Thaler raised a hand, his regal poise commanding silence from both sides. "Admiral Voss, the right has been fulfilled. This human has proven his worth, exposing betrayals that spanned our worlds. The neural cascade is dismantled, its shadows banished. Let this be the dawn of alliance, not conflict." Lyra added her voice, her melodic tone weaving diplomacy with passion. "We've bridged the stars with trust and love. Stand down and join us in forging peace." The Admiral's expression softened, the hologram capturing a flicker of surprise and respect. After a weighted pause, she nodded. "Very well, we'll dock and discuss terms, but know this, the galaxy watches." The transmission ended, leaving the hall in a collective exhale, the drama resolving into a tentative harmony. In the days that followed, as Federation delegates mingled with Zorathian courtiers in the palace's glittering halls, negotiations unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance. Illy and Lyra stood at the heart of it, their bond a living testament to what unity could achieve, human empathy tempering Zorathian strength, creating something greater than either alone. Awkward moments arose, like when Federation officers sampled Zorathian cuisine and sputtered at its spicy kick, or when nobles quizzed Illy on Earth customs, leading to humorous demonstrations of human dances that left everyone in stitches. Orvok, ever the opportunist, secured trade deals that lined his pockets while bolstering the new alliance, his jests about love conquering all, with a side of piracy, becoming legendary anecdotes. Vexar's trial came swiftly, his implants removed and his schemes laid bare, sentencing him to exile on a distant moon, a merciful fate that allowed the Empire to heal. Kale was honored as a hero, granted a position in the Royal Guard, his loyalty forged in fire now shining bright. As peace accords were signed under the auroras of Zorathia Prime, Illy and Lyra slipped away to a private balcony overlooking the crystal seas, the twin moons casting a silver glow on her pale skin and pointed ears. She leaned into him, her curvaceous form fitting perfectly against his, as if the universe had designed them for this very moment. "We did it," she whispered, her violet eyes reflecting the stars. From battlefield abandonment to this, a love that saved worlds. Illy kissed her forehead, his arms encircling her with the same protectiveness that had started it all. Humanity's greatest weapon isn't tech or tactics, it's heart. And you, princess, have mine forever. They stood there, entwined, as shuttles streaked across the sky like shooting stars, heralding a new era. The intergalactic war faded into history, replaced by tales of the human soldier and the alien princess who turned enemies into eternal allies. And in the quiet vastness of the cosmos, their story echoed, a beacon of hope, proving that even in the darkest voids, connection could light the way home. And as the auroras of Zorathia danced eternally across the skies, Illy and Lyra ventured forth into a new chapter, their love a bridge between worlds, inspiring countless others to embrace the unknown with open hearts. In the end, it wasn't weapons or empires that triumphed, but the unbreakable spirit of connection, proving that humanity's greatest adventures begin with a single act of kindness. Personally, I adore this tale for its blend of epic sci-fi action and heartfelt romance. It reminds us that true strength lies in vulnerability and empathy. What do you think? Would you risk everything for a love across the stars? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you all for joining this journey. Your likes, subs, comments, and shares mean the world. They fuel us to create even more captivating stories. Hit that button and let's keep the adventure going.